during your show, you talked to us a lot about how you got your start in theater acting. And I was just curious to know how you went from that transition from onstage acting to television acting and stand-up comedy.
That's a good question. Isabel, that's your first question?
Yes.
1 for 1. I was in Chicago working in the theater, and I had really good fortune. My company was great, and I went from being a supporting player to a leading man for my company in my mid-20s, and then I started getting work at big theaters like Steppenwolf and the Goodman, the biggest theaters that were very serious, that would take shows to New York, and I started getting work in films that would come to Chicago. And I don't know, the way things were going, I just felt like I was on a bit of a nice roll. And so I decided I was going to move to New York or LA, and I just had a bunch of weather conditions point me towards LA, and I got a couple little jobs in LA. So I moved to LA. And just kind of started plugging away. I kept doing theater there. Then I started getting both small film and TV roles, and it's just a matter of having the perspicacity and the perseverance to stick around and maneuver, make the right choices, and even so, that you still need just a great deal of luck.
Okay. Now you've probably heard this question a lot. But who are your comedic influences?
I actually don't get asked that
really?
very often, yeah.
Interesting.
Infrequently enough that I have to actually think about it. I mean, I've always been a big fan of SNL. Mm-hmm. I mean, I knew Amy Poehler in the early 90s, but then I didn't see her for about 8 or 10 years. And by the time I saw her again, she was my hero. I was like, oh my God, and I was so excited she remembered me. Will Ferrell is a huge hero of mine. Conan, Letterman, Laurel and Hardy, Martin Short. Martin Short needs to have a champion season. He is probably the funniest person working. Mel Brooks, Carol Burnett, my wife Megan.
She is great as Tammy on Parks and Rec.
She's something else, yeah. Yeah, a lot. I mean, and I could give you 100 more names. I really love being entertained by people, and I've had the great pleasure of getting to be next to a lot of really funny people. The cast of Children's Hospital, the cast of Parks and Recreation. There's a lot of funny folks. Okay,
so I think it's safe to say that you're most commonly known as Ron Swanson on Parks and Recreation, but 20, 30 years from now, how do you want your fans to remember you by?
You're doing a great job.
Thank you. This is my first time.
People ask me the stupidest questions. Usually their questions are like, so tell me about Ron.
Or your mustache or steak.
Yes, thank you. It's interesting. I should say that when I landed here in Rochester, the guy that rented me my car at Alamo, very nice guy named Walter, did that thing where he was like, do you rent from us a lot? Because you look really familiar. And I said, no, I'm on a show called Parks and Recreation. And he was like, no. And I said, George Lopez? And he was like, yeah, man. It's funny, I did a couple of years recurring on the George Lopez show where I was engaged to his mom. The seminal role of Randy was my name. It was really fun, but it's interesting, there's a weird 12%, if I'm gonna get recognized, 12% of the people are George Lopez, not Parks and Rec fans, strangely. Anyway, in 20 or 30 years, I would love to just be remembered. I don't care what for. I mean, this part is such a ridiculous winning lottery ticket that if I had to trade it for never getting, this is my answer when people say, aren't you afraid of being typecast and having a hard time? After Ron, if I had to trade Ron for no more TV or film jobs after Ron, I would make that trade in a heartbeat and then just do theater for the rest of my life.
Okay.
But I don't care. I mean, I hope I do something that people remember or think is good.
Okay.
And if not, maybe they'll remember a table that I made.
And one last question. You have a movie coming out, Somebody Up There Likes Me,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe this is your first time co-producing
Producing,
anything?
yeah.
So what's that been like for you?
It's been fantastic and fascinating and exhausting and really fun.
Mm-hmm.
We shot the movie 2 summers ago, so like a year and a half ago in Austin. And it's a friend of mine. I've made a couple indie movies with him before, and this by far is the best one we've done together. And I'm really excited. Tribeca Films is releasing it March 12th or 13th on video on demand. But it's also going to get like an art house release, so you can see it in theaters. And it's been really gratifying. I'm really proud of it. It premiered at South by Southwest, and a few companies wanted to buy it, and so it's been really exciting. My wife is in it, and she has a small part. She has 3 little scenes as a therapist, but she's easily the funniest thing in it.
That's interesting that you guys do a lot of stuff together.
We do. We just had another movie at Sundance get bought called Toys House. That'll come out this year sometime. We get to play together a lot, which I think is really lucky.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to let us interview you.
My pleasure.
It was great meeting you.
Thanks for having me.
Big fan.
I appreciate it. I'm getting pretty fond of you as well.